Hey folks, thanks for joining us on Beer and Bullshit again this week. This week we were hanging out with Sylvie Lamothe from Rebel Soul Tribe event planning here in Timmins. And we had a really great chat about what else is there to talk about, I guess. COVID-19, coronavirus, social distancing, social isolation. We talked a lot about the mental health impacts of isolating socially, what the future might hold for reopening the world as we know it, and we had some really thoughtful discussion and a good time with Sylvie. She's a really fun person to hang out with and to chat with, so hope you enjoy the podcast. Thanks so much. Cheers.
We've been drinking beer, and we'll be drinking when you get here. Thinking, will I ever be sober? Hoping this will never be over. And I'm drinking beer, and I'll be drinking when you get here. We started drinking liquor, so we could.
Alright, so Beer and Bullshit hanging out in the basement of our bunkers again, doing this remotely. Tonight we're hanging out with Sylvie Lamothe from Rebel Soul Tribe. And how you doing tonight, Sylvie?
I'm doing pretty good. I just finished watching the Jack Johnson festival that he was putting on in Hawaii, so that was pretty entertaining. A good way to spend a Saturday night.
Yeah, it's really cool. And I did see that you're throwing a Facebook watch party. I don't know if that's like just something that is automatically put on when they do these things.
So it's not, and it's really interesting because I accidentally did a watch party last weekend when that global concert was going on with Lady Gaga. I was like, what is this? And it's really cool because you can have your own kind of private watch party with your friends so that any of your friends can see that you're watching this, so they'll log on, and then you can have your kind of private group chat within that watch party. So it's pretty cool.
Nice. Yeah, I know that the social media companies have sort of gotten on this train of everybody being at home and trying to simulate us all hanging around in a basement again. And I know Jay and I and our wives, we got onto the house party app. Like when did we do
what is that? I don't know what that is.
Yeah, when did we do that, Jay? And I don't know, like if you've used it before, but
we've used it for the last 2 weeks now.
Yeah.
Like we've done a Friday night or Thursday night thing, and it's it's like Zoom and all that stuff, but they just have a couple built-in games in it.
Okay.
So they have built-in games like we did like a Pictionary thing, we did a random trivia thing.
Yeah, the trivia thing too, eh? Yeah. No,
so there's a couple little games. That's all really different. There's no.
Yeah, my friends were playing. I couldn't join last night because I had something else going on. But they were playing Cards Against Humanity online. So there's an app that you could download. I don't know how it works. I'm interested, but yeah, there's all this kind of fun online stuff going on now, right?
There was a Cards Against Humanity version on the House Party app too that we played for a bit.
Okay, cool.
There was one there too, so
nice. Yeah, all these like I said, all the social media companies are sort of jumping on board of trying to simulate what you would have these like get-togethers in your house, whether it be like watching this One World concert or having watch parties of specific like events. And I was initially a little excited about it because I thought, you know what, this is great. Everybody's sort of finding the silver linings in these situations. And now I'm a little bit finding it. I don't know if it's just that I'm feeling like it's just not the same, or that it seems kind of creepy that we would maybe buy into it a little bit too much. I don't know. I don't know if it's losing its luster a little too quick for me, but I find it a little too Black Mirror for me. It feels like we're never going to leave our house again.
I'm settling in quite nicely into this new lifestyle, so I'm like, yeah, I'm fine if we just stay like this forever. I'm good. I'm comfortable. I've settled.
And you're feeling good about it, and you've adapted your business to it, from what I see. That was one of the reasons I thought it was interesting to bring you on the podcast and to talk to you a little bit about like kind of your perspective on this. We've talked to some people who were still kind of going out there and how they saw this impact their business. Like Mark was on last week, and he was talking about how all of this has sort of upped the demand on what he does and upped everything that like sort of increased his level of activity. And I sort of been following your posts, and you being somebody who's planning events, right, where people would show up, these gatherings, these things that we're currently trying to avoid. This must have resulted in just at least initially a real slowdown and having to back up from what you were normally doing.
Yeah, it was really interesting because as soon as everything kind of hit and shut down is when I was preparing to ramp up events for the season, right? If you think about it that way, winter and spring season. So I had events almost planned for almost every weekend. Some were like 2 per weekend, and they were starting. I had 2 planned for the tail end weekend of March break. It was painful to having to hit, cancel on every single one. Because I was really looking forward to those. And then, so definitely kind of hit hard, and it hit me in the feelings. And then it was sort of like, okay, we have to cancel everything. And I have a business that like promotes being social and out there and human connection, and let's get together and let's do something different. This is my whole business model, right? So canceled everything, and sort of that week of March break and the week after were kind of really hard, right? We got a lot of information. The schools closed, the borders closed, all of that stuff kind of came out. So it was sort of like, okay, what's going on? The world's falling apart. So I had to wrap my own, kind of mental health around that. And what does it mean? And then one of the artisans that I partner with, Justine, who works at the ski hill and the brewery. So 2 businesses that closed down. So she reached out to me, and she said, and we had planned a few events together that were coming out. And she was like, Sylvie, I just lost 2 jobs. Like, can we do something? Can we put this online? Can we like figure it out? And I was like, okay, yeah. So figured out how to do Zoom. The first workshop that we did a curbside pickup of the supplies at Full Deer Brewing. We were parts of the
Okay, cool.
And picked up, we did a bracelet making one. So people came and picked up their bracelets. And then by the time we did our next event, I was like, hey, we got to try to make it the least human contact possible, right? I was like, we're just going to get addresses and drop them on people's porches, mailbox, whatever, delivered right to their front door, and make it like the touchless service, right? So we moved to that model, yeah.
Now, you talked about your like the central theme of your business being promoting that human and social connection and being together. And obviously this has sort of turned all of that on its head, right? The idea that we're all these large social events that are being planned for the summer. The fact, like just this past week, Rock on the River was canceled. They pulled the plug on that. It seems like right and left, they're basically canceling summer on us, right? Like, what do you see for the future of this in the sense that, we're kind of living through something that wasn't on most people's radars in the very beginning. And even when we start to open things up, I think there's still an anticipation that some people are going to it's going to take time for even some people to become comfortable getting out there in large gatherings again. So like, what are your thoughts on that and how that sort of impacts events that you want to throw and how you promote that connection at the same time?
Yeah. It's interesting too, because I started in the summers. So the creative events and stuff that I do mostly in the winter to encourage people to go out. And then in summer, people want to be outside. So I started a paddleboard business last summer, which I had big plans to grow for this summer. So that has completely kind of gone to the wayside. I'm not even, I was going to buy more boards. I was going to connect with festivals, partner with festivals that are by large waterways. So I'm not even, those plans are all on hold. I'm not even going to, try to plan anything around that, because we don't know when we're going to open, and then we don't know what the economy is going to be like when we're able to open as well, right? So my business slowly relies on people having disposable income, and the economy is going to shit. So who knows, right? And right now, with Rebel Soul Tribe, what I'm doing is just kind of taking it day by day, week by week. So it's, I'm not, so usually what I do is, so I have the fall season, which starts in September to December, and I kind of look at my calendar and I'll plan those 4 months all in one shot and plan all the events and the dates. I usually, and then in January, I do the same thing. I go to Full Beard, I sit with Johnny, we look at the calendar, we hit all the dates, set those up for a 4 month chunk of time. So now my planning is really, okay, let's look at the next 4 weeks. What can we do in the next 4 weeks? Launch those. And then kind of taking things a little slower. And then when you look at it too, speaking to my cousin in Toronto who runs a theater center, they're sort of looking at, okay, when we reopen, are people even going to want to go to the theater? And what is that going to look like? And do we have social distancing at the theater? Yeah. So we put, 2 seats together, 2 seats empty, 4 seats together, so people can sit with who they come with, but still have a distance between them. It's interesting because I have a friend in Vietnam and they just lifted their lockdown. And she's saying that going out in public, out on the streets, taking any public transportation, you have to wear a mask. That's one thing that they have to do. The restaurants, the cafes are open, but the bars, the karaoke bars, of course it's Asia, karaoke bars, the gyms, clubs, the clubs are still shut down. And then I think it's gatherings of up to 10 people are allowed now. So it's a slow kind of start. And she's kind of noticed, she's like, some people just act like it didn't even happen. Like they're walking in the streets like it didn't even happen. And she's still being very careful of, how close she gets to people. So it's going to be interesting on how this, reopening happens and where people are going to be with that. I also think that we're all going to be socially awkward as fuck. Like,
I know I am now.
Have that human interaction, right? So.
I 100% am super awkward right now and I think half of it comes down to the fact that every person I cross, I don't know how strictly they're adhering to social distancing. So I'm looking at them, they're looking at me, and they're probably thinking the same thing. And I'm going like, don't get too close. Am I already too close to you? It's making us all feel like we're in the 8th grade again at like the year-end formal. What do I do with my hands?
It's really weird, right? And then you almost feel like, because you're kind of going around people, it like you feel rude, right? Like you're just like going around people. So if I'm walking down the street and I'm like crossing the street, not to come in that close contact with somebody, I always try to make eye contact and smile at the same time, like walking away but still smiling, like, I don't know if that makes it more awkward or not.
Going out of your way to smile.
Well, just not because I feel rude. I'm like, oh, you're there. I'm just going to walk over here. I don't want to be close to you.
Exactly.
It's just weird.
Jay, did you see that they're opening up Saskatchewan? Is it next week?
Yeah, they're doing a slow rollout for Saskatchewan. Like, I'm assuming, like, I'm guessing their numbers are low. Like, they don't have a huge population. Like, I get it. And I can guess it's just a bunch of, a bunch of wheat farmers, so
they're all out in the middle of nowhere anyways, right?
Whatever. But yeah, no, like I wonder what that's going to be like. Like, they not huge centers. That's a tough one.
Well, I think that's what, like, these are the places we're going to have to watch, right?
Yeah.
And see what comes out of that. Like, to some extent, like, it really sucks that in Ontario we got such high numbers of cases, but we're getting to see what a reopening of the economy looks like and which places may have done it too early if there ends up being a second wave of infections and all that. But also how people are going to react in these places, right? Like you mentioned Vietnam, Sylvie, and some people are walking around like it never happened, and some people are walking around like it's still happening, right?
Yeah.
So it's you're getting both ends of the spectrum. So I don't know. To me, that's going to be telling on what to expect when they start to reopen things here in Ontario. So I'm interested.
I don't know if it's New Brunswick or somebody was telling me today that one of the provinces on the East Coast was doing slow reopening, but what they're doing first is allowing to so let's say they're allowing families to visit each other, but only with one family. Okay. So let's say you start visiting with your in-laws and your family visits with your in-laws, then you are not allowed to go visit with other families. This is what I heard. I haven't seen it, but it's kind of funny. My parents were telling me today, they're like, so we're going to have to pick if we visit with you or your brother. And I was like, you can have my brother. I'm good. I'm like,
it's tailor-made for arguments, right? This is perfect. It's funny that you mentioned that, because I was asking that same question. I feel like this is where a lot of people are getting fatigued with this whole social distancing thing, is not getting to see their families. I'm having a hard time not going to my parents' place, having a beer, not going for Sunday dinner at my wife's parents' place. And we're like wondering when that's going to start. And I couldn't help but think in this sense that logically that would be one of the last things that they would allow people to, or they would recommend that people do. The first things will be things where people are relying on a paycheck, right?
Yeah.
You want to get people back to making a living. But I don't know. Yeah. It all depends on how you're looking at it. Is it like, are you trying to take care of people's mental health so they don't go insane? Or do you want to make, because I mean, it's not good for your mental health either if you're poor. So
it's really, really hard because you have, the economic factors coming into play. You have mental health coming into, like there's a lot of layers to this. And then, small businesses are, a lot of them are suffering right now. So, yeah.
I'm going to mute myself for 1 second, guys.
Yeah, no problem.
1 sec. I just got to hand off the baby monitor to the spouse.
Jay's a new father.
Is that like a relay? You're like, here you go, it's your turn.
That's exactly how it works. And you will. I don't know if you had seen any other episodes of the podcast, but you won't be surprised when you see that none of this gets cut. we take these breaks all the time. So if you got to get up, you got something to do, that's perfectly fine as well. I think we've had people clean their house. I remember one time we did one with John Core, and I had to get up and go tend to my crying daughter, and that's when our guest was in the house with us. So,
nice.
Yeah, it's a very informal thing we do here. No, but I mean, kind of getting back to the whole mental health aspect, because and this was something that I thought was interesting and related to the point of your business, as you had mentioned, right? Yeah. Is being social, bringing people together. And it seemed like it was really centered around promoting a healthy mindset and people kind of being in the right state of mind and being around each other. And this is, like I said, it's kind of thrown that for chaos. And there's a lot of people who are looking at or grasping at different ways to maintain that throughout this. And I'm wondering if it's going to be a relief to those people when things get back to quote unquote normal and everybody's going to be rushing back to getting to these large scale events, or if we're going to find ways that'll be sufficiently social enough, right? So you're going to have people that don't want to risk getting sick, and they say, yeah, you know what? It's good enough for me to watch a live stream concert from home, right? Is there going to be enough of those people?
So what's really interesting is that what I found since I've taken these events online, I'm hitting a different market with these So I've had people before that are, keep telling me I want to go to your events, but, they're, mothers with, young kids, they can't necessarily leave the house. You're getting people that are just highly introverted that don't like to leave the house. So I'm getting a lot of new people signed on to these workshops because they can do them at home. You don't have to leave the house. So it's kind of bringing in a whole different set of people. And I was talking to Justine of Revolves Designs, who I partner with, and we're sort of talking about, when things kind of reopen, when we get on the other side of this, is, having both models. So doing workshops, live workshops at local venues, but also hosting some online too. So kind of keeping with this model as well, because you are getting, we use Zoom. So the first one we actually used Facebook Live, and we found that because a lot of our events you're crafting, right? So you're using your hands, and Facebook Live, you only get that one person speaking and people can comment. But now we've moved to Zoom, where everybody can put their video on, we can chat with each other. So it makes it a little more, it gives it more of that social feel, right? And the comments that I've had of people that have come, and then they message me afterwards and they're like, wow, I really needed that. It was so nice to interact with, a group of women and not necessarily, my 5-year-old all the time, that kind of stuff. So I think it's opening doors. And then, I teach also at the Bodhi Tree Yoga Studio, which we've gone online now. So, you can still, I think businesses are going to see that, they could offer that hybrid even when things slowly start to open, because you're going to have the people that want to just do these kinds of things at home. It's really interesting. Yeah.
And you know what? I was thinking about that this week, and Jay, I feel like you could provide a real good analysis of this as the head honcho business guy at Northern College. So he can tell us how can I explain it?
We'll see about that.
We'll see. Okay, so I see that there's a big change that comes for a lot of businesses on this front. Like a lot of people transitioning to online, like things like you mentioned, doing yoga classes online. Now, what becomes difficult, I think, is to monetize those types of things, right? Because people are so used to getting shit for free on the internet, right? Mm-hmm. Like free YouTube videos, whatever, right? They just don't have to pay. But you're also dealing with the fact that you might not have the brick and mortar real estate rent to contend with on that front. Where do you find that balance where it still becomes something that you can have an income from, but you're really low overhead, right? Like how, are there examples of businesses that have done this just really well? Do people look to examples in retail, or I don't know?
So this is a question to me?
That's the question. I'm confused, Jason. Enlighten me.
I think there's a possibility. I do think you guys are doing pretty good for Rebel Soul Tribe and the what's Justine's business name again? Revolves?
Revolves Designs, yeah.
There you go. I'm not too bad. I remember. I have her on Instagram, so I do think you guys have a pretty decent little ideas at the fact that you guys are selling, there's an item they need to get in order to participate type thing. Mm-hmm, so there's a reason to have to spend. Then you see, there are the workout programs, Chris Hemsworth stuff and all that, where it's a bit of a membership type thing, and instead of paying for a trainer, essentially it's an online trainer. So I think there are some options with that. Am I going to want to spend money on doing online trivia with, Jason Boissonneau grain teasers? Probably not. That's going to be a tougher call to do when you can just go to Sporkle and play whatever trivia they have there.
But there's a difference, though, because even with the creative social we hosted on Zoom last night, you're meeting up with people and we had, somebody jumps on and they're like, oh, Mel, you're here too. Hey, how's it going? You still have that kind of interaction with people that you know. And in terms of, sorry if I'm interrupting you, but in terms of gym memberships, okay, this is what we do. This is okay.
Oh yeah, perfectly fine.
In terms of gym memberships and online fitness because that stuff is popping up free and out there. But what Discover Fitness has done, which is really, really interesting, because I have a membership with them and I've kept my membership with them, as they started and I think they're getting new members because of this. So it's really all about adding value, right? So they've started a private Facebook virtual group, and they have all of their regular fitness classes on there where the instructors pop on, they teach. But they also they're bringing in guest speakers. So last night's creative social that we did was through the Discover Fitness team. And then they've brought in like Tina from Rainville Health. They brought in April, who like did a makeup tutorial. There's been nutrition tutorials today or tomorrow. I think there's a meal planning kind of guest speaker that you get to access through this membership. And not only does it like add value to your membership, but it also highlights all of these local businesses, right? And some of them that are kind of hurting right now to really feature what they're doing. Another thing that they've done as well is they've rented out all of their spin bikes. Their gym equipment has all been rented out. So that's sort of a business that I've seen that has really stepped up their game in what they can offer their members, and growing. I think they have over 300 members on that online community. So I think the membership rate has dropped down a little bit for the online stuff, but they've stepped it up and added value to their
that's an
I
interesting.
do see them
one.
doing.
Go ahead. No, go ahead, Jay.
Like I do see them, and like I see that type of business still having that value. And if they're looking at extra things to add on, like all the better. I do see stuff like that doing well. What I see, some companies doing, like retail companies, like product instead of just actual like a service. Like service, there's a way to do it still, and like depending how creative you're going to be, I think there's a way to get this done. But like let's say the Bonnie boys at the Wake Park, that's going to be a little bit of a tougher call. Like there's not a whole, unless some reason they allow some type of tourism thing on city property, that's going to be tough. But you see like O'Reilly's, they're still doing bike tune-ups. Drop off at your house, you got to just drop them off, they'll pick them up, they'll drop it off later. Stuff like that could still be very useful. Like they have to just figure out like, all right, the regular retail stuff might not be there, but the service side is gonna be something to pick up. So like maybe start focusing on more of the tune-ups, start focusing more on the selling stuff directly to customers type thing, instead of just because no one's going in and going to try out baseball bets. We're not selling that this year.
But and I think that has a lot to do with the fact that a lot of sports is canceled. But the fact that so maybe once that gets going, that's going to be a little different. But as far as like brick and mortar retail, like people staying at home now are even less inclined to go out and do that support local if that local is not delivering or taking orders online, or like they'll buy from Amazon before they do that, because they'll have it they have infinite inventory and they'll have it at your door within 24 hours. And I say infinite inventory unless you're trying to buy Lysol products, apparently. Yeah.
Well, I need to make a drink of something.
Makes sense.
But even when you look at like Compass and how they've kind of switched and they're making hand sanitizer now, right? Like just getting really creative on what exactly you can do to pivot really in this time.
Yeah, it's different, and I mean, as a podcast, we've pivoted from selling nothing to people in one setting to selling nothing to people online. So
I'm interested. Like I know, like we've spoken about it. We've been trying to push. Lately, especially buy local. It's going to be interesting with the brick and mortar retail stores, how they're going to do once if they start slowly bringing in or lifting requirements. Are people going to rush out and start shopping at the mall again? Or is that going to be are people going to be hesitant for that?
It's funny because I was having coffee in my parents' driveway today, and my mother was like, I cannot wait to go shopping. That's all I want to do right now. It's like, she's like, we are, as soon as everything opens up, we are driving to Sudbury. You're coming with me. We are going shopping. I'm like, okay. All I've been getting are ads of jogging pants right now.
I could see I guess and this was probably already happening. It's just going to accelerate this process. Is that eventually any kind of brick and mortar establishment is really just going to be storage for whatever that it's going to be a shipping receiving operation, right? Most places will have to hold inventory of their product, have a very, very small storefront, and unless you're a place of congregating, right, where people are looking to congregate, like let's say you look at Full Beard, right? Like they've got the whole side of the establishment where they make their beer and sell it, and they have their storefront component to it, but then they have something that's a little bit larger where people can sit down and have a drink and stick around and socialize. Now, if you're not selling beer, you're selling knickknacks or whatever, right? Like, what's the point of even having a storefront when you can do your online distribution? You can use all your real estate as inventory storage. You can maximize that to hold as much inventory as you can and just have a shipping receiving operation at the front, right? Where people are just receiving stock and shipping it out.
But what happens when it's inventory that you have? Well, first of all, if it spoils, but what if it's something that has to be refrigerated, but something that has to be you have to try on? Like I have, like, I don't know why I've bought in about like 3 suits since I've been in quarantine, because I just keep getting emails for like RW and Banana Republic, stuff like that, and I'm like, oh,
he's getting dressed up to go sit in his living room.
Pretty well. But like, I know my sizes, I know the cut that fits me and all that stuff. Like, I already am the go to a store to window shop in order to go back home and order online. I've already been doing that, and I'm not saying that's what I do all the time. I don't go to Tip Top Tailors and say, okay, like, I know what this is, and then go home and order somewhere else. I'll buy it from them. But like, you know, let's be honest, we're in Timmins. There's the options you want for buying certain things you can't get here. But, you know, like, a lot of people will go to Best Buy, check out the TV, and if they can get the cheaper price on Amazon or wherever, or straight from the manufacturer, they're going to go do that. So, like, is this going to, like...
But is that not a shipping return problem? Is that not just like, okay, I order this, it shows up at my house within hours, I try it on in my house, it doesn't fit, I send it back. Yep. And it's gone within hours. Right? Like, there are companies that, and I mean, I don't buy a lot of clothes online, but clothes shows up at my house sometimes. And there are companies that have figured out how to do this in a way that is actually quite convenient. You receive it, you try it on, it's not really what I was looking for, whatever. You put it back, there's already what you need to return it, and you send it back and you get your refund. Now, it's not done in the context of an afternoon, right? Like, you're not walking around in a mall for this. But to me, if a company can save on real estate costs in order to pass the savings on to the customer, then, man, I'm sure a lot of people can figure this out and sort of change their shopping habits, especially anybody who has never grown up in the environment of the mall or retail establishments, right?
I can see that, but like, going out shopping is sometimes also, your
exercise.
Well, exercise. You're like, kind of. Are you breaking?
It's true.
Are you breaking a sweat while you're shopping?
They're just like, some older individuals will go out, and that's their walk. That's their fresh air, quote unquote. Yeah. That's them getting away.
But it's also a social experience where I'll go, call my best friend, hey, let's go, shopping, and we spend an afternoon. We try stuff on. We go grab a coffee, a drink, whatever afterwards. So there's that too, right? So there's something to be said, and then there's like, even, there's some stores that I walk into that know me by name now, because like those are the places I shop. So you kind of feel like you're at home too. You walk in and they're like, "Hey, Sylvie, blah blah blah," you know. So you kind of get that experience too. So you can't substitute that with online shopping.
Well, see, and I agree with you, but that's speaking from my perspective as a person who's got a bit of nostalgia for that kind of thing, right? That whole social aspect. Like, I'm thinking more of my kids who will grow up never having to really go to a store, right? So to them, if I tell them like, "Oh yeah, you know, we used to go to the grocery store to get milk," and they'd be like, "Go to the grocery store? What do you mean?
You get that at my door?
To the grocery store? You know, you can just do this, right? Like, yeah, but I mean, like, we couldn't do that before, and I kind of like going out to the grocery store. What? It saves you so much time, you know." Like, it's
time for what?
Same conversations I have with my parents these days. Come on, you know, like, you just order it online. It's fine.
See, I've been the proponent that kind of retail is kind of dead. There are certain retail industries that do work. A good portion of it's dead. You know, let's say if you're playing, like, I haven't bought one since God knows when, since 2011. But if you want to buy a PlayStation game, you know what it is. You just click it on whatever website and you get it in the mail. You don't have to go to the mall to pick that up. Yes, clothing is a bit more of an intimate thing where you kind of have to, it's a lot easier to try it on, or you need to know at least, you know, what type of cut or whatever works. But, you know, like, a lot of it is you don't need to be there. Like, I can order a pack of whatever diapers. That's what I can see behind me. You know, you can just click it and, like, you know, all right, he's this size. That's all I need. The box will show up 2 days from now, whatever. Especially if you live in one of the areas where, you know, Amazon essentially same day delivery or the next day delivery. Why would you even have to go out for some stuff? And look at Walmart. Like, let's be honest. Going to Walmart, I will go to Walmart for groceries before I go there to go buy other stuff. Like, toiletries, I would count as groceries, but, like, I'm not going there to pick up whatever. Like, and half the shelves would usually be empty beforehand because retail is dead. It's one of the few retail things that are actually still working. In a metropolitan like Toronto, they have the mass amount to keep it alive, but there's a reason why there's no downtown. There's nothing in both malls in Timmins. Retail's gone. And will this maybe bring it back? I don't think so. I think when it comes to retail, I think the fact that, you know, people are developing these better and better and better to make it easier, and, you know, the idea of keeping inventory, a huge percentage of inventory in house, you know, that's against already conventional wisdom of just in time inventory. You know, like, don't hold on to stuff you don't have to, because that means you bought it, and that means you have to sell it. So why, you know, it's the people are going to figure out how to quickly be that go between, but with the ability to buy straight from manufacturer or whatnot, that's going to be tough.
But it'll be between, like, I think two different types of businesses are going to have two different types of reactions to this situation. Like the grocery industry, right? They've seen what happens now when you have just-in-time inventory. Is you end up with shortages as soon as there's any kind of uptick in consumption. So whenever everybody decides to get their toilet paper and clear the shelves, then which I'm listening right now to Joe Rogan's podcast with Tom Green, okay, and he had an interesting theory on why toilet paper was the first thing to go, and it's that initially a whole bunch of people went out and did groceries. They bought one pack of toilet paper, but toilet paper is actually quite large in volume, and it takes up a whole aisle, right? So everybody just bought their normal amount of toilet paper, but they bought it at the same time. So that led to a whole aisle empty of toilet paper, which if you ended up with just the one section of name your brand of cracker empty, you wouldn't even notice it. It wouldn't even be like, it wouldn't be psychologically kind of like jarring to you. But this was a whole aisle that was completely cleared, and then that set off people to buy more and to hoard it. And when it came to the shelves, they cleared it out. Made by Dr. Tom Green.
not a bad point. It's probably a decent. It's not a bad theory. It's like that is be much more visceral, much more, visual. You would be able to see like, wait a second, I need some.
Yeah. As soon as you see that the aisle is just completely clear, it's okay. What is going on right now, right?
And who didn't go do groceries in that first week when they were saying get ready? It's all gonna be locked down. Everyone did groceries. Yeah.
I sent somebody.
Oh yeah, you weren't around.
No. No, but just personally too, like how we've sort of been asking the people who've been coming on the podcast, like, how did you react to this? Like, what was your initial kind of, I don't know, like Jace referred to it as a visceral reaction. Like, what's the first thing? Was it panic? Was it like, okay, I need to get down to business? Like, what was how'd you feel about it?
Well, it's interesting because, it was, at first it was just this coronavirus that was going around and I had a trip planned to Portugal in May with my parents and my mom kept calling me. It's like, are we still going? I think we should cancel it. What are we doing? And it was in early February. I was like, stop watching the news. What do you like? It's just this virus, like,
just the flu.
SARS. Yeah, exactly. I was like, you're freaking out. It's nothing. And then I have a coworker who is a high germaphobe, so she kind of started freaking out a little bit about this, and I was still on the like, relax, whatever. It's it's nothing. And then as soon as the schools closed down, I got like shivers down my spine. I thought, okay, for that to happen, like this is bigger than what I thought, right? And then when the federal government started talking about shutting down the borders, and when that happened, it just blew my mind. I was like, okay, something crazy is happening. And it took some time to get to Timmins, right? So, you don't really, it wasn't here locally. But as soon as the border shut down, I thought, oh my God, like this is crazy. And I went on I think it was this Sunday of March break, I did a live video on my social media, and because people were messaging me about my events, and I was like, no, we're still running, everything's fine, blah blah blah. And then the next day, I was like, nope, we're hitting cancel on everything. We can't do this, So it definitely, like, trying to wrap my head around exactly what was going on. And the fact that it was such on a like global scale. I've traveled a lot and I lived in a lot of different countries, right? So I kind of had this like global mindset as well, where I was like, oh my God, like this is affecting like all of these countries all at once. Yeah, I had some pretty big kind of like mental breakdowns, I would say, where it was like, okay, this is too much. And I watched like the provincial updates and I watched the federal updates and that kind of stuff, right? So just kind of keeping up to date of what is actually going on from the source, right, in terms of what government is doing. So I just like would have these like breakdowns where I'm like, okay, no, I'm turning my computer off. I don't know what's going on. And so that was a bit tough. And then I just kind of turned on. I was like, okay, this is going to be, I freaked out the first week too, because I thought I live alone and I'm a highly introverted person. I'm really social and I'm always out and about, right? So always interacting with people. So I was like, I can't do this. I can't be in my house alone by myself all the time. Like I need to be around people. So had a bit of a breakdown there. And then I decided to really like dive into like, okay, I need to have some healthy habits and like kind of pull into my mindset and self-care kind of activities, right? And I started working from home as soon as the schools closed down too. So it was quite early. So I just kind of like got in a habit of like doing morning yoga practices, getting online with my fitness. I also, non-negotiable is going for a walk every single day just to get out of the house. So just really ramping on it, like, okay, how can I take care of myself? So I'm like, my immune system is top notch. So when it does hit me, I can like try to fight this. And then, for the mental health as well, like what do I need to do in terms of like showing up for myself in the best way possible, because this is like gonna fuck with your head, right? Especially being in high isolation. So, just kind of wrapping that up and knowing that like I had to step up my game. I'm also the type of person, so a lot of people are, kind of, I don't like to be alone, I miss my family, I did this. I was born and raised in Timmins, but I left Timmins when I was 19. So I moved to Ottawa for a few years. I lived on the west coast of Canada for, I'm getting my sister-in-law FaceTime me.
That's all right.
FaceTiming me. So
Add them in. Add them in.
What's that?
Add them in. Yeah, sure.
yeah. By the way, we're on a podcast. I lived on the west coast of Canada for a few years, and then I lived abroad for 4 years. I was in and out of different countries. So
we call them ladies. We don't have to call them broads anymore.
Nice. I like that. So that just because of that, I had to manage relationships with family and friends through video, right? Yeah. Through Skype, through phone at a distance. I was also in a long distance relationship for 2 years with a partner, right? We lived an ocean across. So just managing these kinds of relationships, I guess, from afar, I got used to that. So I feel like my maybe adaptation skills are kind of, at this level where I'm like, okay, this is just my new life now. I'm good.
You kind of had it figured out already, right? Like you knew how to settle into this. But I think regardless, just the global scale of this kind of emergency, it sort of leads everybody into this. You sort of described it as a little bit of a 7 stages of grief situation, right? Where you have your initial kind of your initial reaction to it. It broadens out into something where you're like, okay, what do I need to do? And then eventually you sort of fall into a routine or something that you've accepted the situation, and you can sort of progress through it. And I found myself doing the same thing. And what I found was the most fascinating about it is seeing everybody come to that at a different time.
At different levels, yeah. And I think I think because I started working from home right off the bat when the schools closed, I think I hit it early on, and then I saw other people coming to this and their entire world falling apart. I'm like, it's okay.
We'll live.
You'll accept this. Yeah. I'm just going to grab another beer.
Yeah, I'm going to do the same thing. No, it's okay. We'll let you do it. We won't leave Jay alone. Go ahead. Yeah, I thought that was an interesting part of this, is just seeing everybody, and there's still some people who are still not quite at the acceptance stage of this.
No.
They've not accepted that this is a real thing. And did you hear Doug Ford call them a bunch of yahoos?
All these yahoos out front.
Okay, I'm liking Doug Ford more and more as this thing goes on.
Am I agreeing with Doug Ford all the
I
time?
know. Can you believe this? we Jay and I were not originally big Doug Ford fans, but I'm finding his behavior throughout this entire process, I've liked him more and more. Today, did you see this today? The video of him at he does his updates. I would like to say a la Trudeau, but they're so much more like him just shooting from the hip. And I kind of like it, He goes up there and he says, you got this bunch of yahoos protesting outside Queen's Park, and they're putting themselves at risk. They're breaking the law. They're putting the public at risk. Who are these people? Half of them probably voted for him.
Yeah, easily.
I tend to turn them off on weekends, but I usually watch them throughout the week. And the first 2 to 3 weeks, he looks so stressed out. At those press calls, you can see it in his face. But one of the things that's funny is that he always says, "Let me be clear," and I thought it'd be a fun drinking game if you're watching it. Every time he says that, you got to take a drink.
Yeah. Does he say friends or folks? What does he say all the time?
He says folks.
Yeah, folks.
Folks.
All right, folks. Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to get another beer.
Get another beer.
Okay.
What are you drinking there?
I am having a Partake.
Partake Pale. All right.
Partake Pale. So this is actually a non-alcoholic craft beer. And that's from, it's a craft brewery from Southern Ontario. It's from Toronto, actually, and I'm spilling my beer on my table now. So, yeah, it's from Toronto.
Oh, yeah.
It's pretty good, yeah.
I had I guess it was this Sabo, or I can't remember what it was, whatever the switcheroo is now at Full Beard, and now,
yeah.
and I'm dropping everything. And I'm having the 705.
Nice.
Oh, nice. That's a nice light one.
Nice. Yeah. I got my shipment from Stack this week.
There you go.
Right now I'm pouring myself an expansion sour IPA.
Ooh.
It's fucking delicious. Like
There
this
you
is just a strong sour, and it's really good. And before that, I was drinking the Panache Session IPA.
Yeah.
Which,
Is that from Stacks as well?
Yeah, from Stack as well.
Nice.
So, we had our buddy Nick Gignac, who runs the kitchen over there, and we figured we'd support him. I'd support him a little bit and send out for a case. So
We're not huge friends of him, but we just have to pretend.
well, I mean, we want him to come on the podcast again, so
Yeah.
You pretend to be friends with him to be cool, is that what you're saying?
yeah, I guess so. We don't have cool jobs like he does. He's a chef. Oh man.
But I just had something. Oh no, but I found that I was kind of thinking and just like wondering about the Doug Ford and did Trudeau. You know, how good of a job did they really do? And I just still think that obviously there was a delay. And do I think they did? You know, should they have answered earlier or done something earlier? You know, like hindsight's 2020.
I think it's really hard to kind of gauge that because this is something that's completely new, right? Like, who knows? And like, I think it could have been a lot worse than what it is now for us.
Yeah.
Like, if you look at some of the other countries in terms of Italy, Spain, France, US, like, they've gone completely downhill, right? So it's.
Well, there's a lot of factors at play here, right? Like, one, you don't know how it's going to impact your country, and you don't know. You don't want to shut down your economy completely if you're not convinced that it's going to have that big of an impact. But anybody who's like kind of looking at other countries and the experiences they've had, you sort of start to get an idea of how many people are getting sick and all of that, right? You start to see what their curves look like, how their certain countries' health systems got overwhelmed. But the one thing that, like, people who are critics of the shutdown, and I think they've got, not that they've got a point, but they've got reasons to be critical, right? A lot of them have their own business interests, and we talked about this last time, right? Like how people tend to gravitate towards answers that suit their questions, and they're legitimate questions, right? Like people who are having legitimate hardship from this. But
yeah, I think that's human nature. You're going to do that, but yeah.
Of course. But the thing that I think people who are criticizing shutting it down, they're making the point of, well, are we doing more harm by shutting everything down than we would have if we would have just let this go? And like, is it really that deadly? Is it really? And the thing is we really don't know that stuff right now. But
there's so much unknown. That's
exactly. But the problem that I think these people are having is they're not looking at what the economy. They're thinking like, well, normal time economy versus shutdown economy because of the virus. They're not thinking normal time economy then a pandemic hits. Like, what does your economy look like when half the population is sitting at home sick? Right? What does your business operations look like? What does your revenue look like in your restaurant if everybody who would have gone to your restaurant is at home or in the hospital?
Or dying. Like, exactly. Italy, they had big military trucks carrying bodies across the country. When I saw that, it was like, oh.
Yeah.
Like,
but most Italian military trucks have always usually been used to carry and cargo certain things and not actually win wars.
So that's just daily life. Wow.
We're gonna get angry comments from the Italian army. You know that, right?
That's all they can do.
Is that a big niche for you guys, the Italian army? Listening to your stuff?
Actually, yes. Actually, yeah.
Yeah, that in Serbia for some reason. I don't know why. I was reading an interesting article and they were talking about, utilitarianism, and it's kind of like the first and main kind of big discussion when it comes to like political science and all that stuff. At any BS university, political science class, it's like is it, do you sacrifice a few for the greater good? You know, like, is that the way to do it? And the argument is the people who are pushing that argument of, come on, like, you hear these crazy, Georgian senators and whatever saying, like, let's reopen, let's do it. Like, I know if I pass, I'll be okay. But the idea about the true idea of utilitarianism is that everyone has the same chance and opportunity to get sick, get hurt, get killed, or whatever, for the greater good. This would be a selective group of people who would be exposed at a higher degree than somebody else. So we're essentially singling out individuals who are working essential services, working in food, working in retail. They would be the ones at a higher risk of getting this problem, where individuals at a quote unquote higher social economic status, or like I'm working from home, I'm
laptop heroes
or risk. Yeah, like, I'm staying at home, I'm doing this, or you're a politician, screw it, I'll just I'll tell you guys go back to work, and I'll sit around, like, mayor of Las Vegas, let's go for it, let's open it up. It's like, yeah, you're not the one who's going to be getting sick. So, and the one big thing too is usually with a lot of these essential jobs, when it comes to retail and whatnot, is usually immigrant communities, lower paid individuals, people who already don't have good medical support or whatnot, are the ones that are going to be exposed to a greater degree. So it's not utilitarianism whatsoever, but people keep trying to use that argument as that's the way to go. But
yeah,
it's neat. It was a neat article. I was just kind of going over it.
Well, that is interesting. Yeah. No, go ahead, Sylvie.
No, it's just like the way that I've been kind of looking at it too, for me, in terms of social distancing and, how I've kind of wrapped my mindset in terms of, what I need to do and, completely isolate myself, is really to, like, I'll probably be okay if I catch this. My immune system is pretty strong. I'm young, I'm healthy. But then I'm kind of looking at it like, okay, so when I get it and I have to look back on the last 14 days, am I going to be proud of my behavior when I have to report on every single person that I've come into contact with? Because I know, like, some people aren't practicing the social distancing as much as, somebody like I am. And I'm very, very fortunate, right, that I get to do that. But then I'm like, if I was able to make the choice of not going to a friend's house, not going to my parents, like limiting my, visits to the grocery store, and I have to look back, like, am I going to be proud to say that, I did everything that I could to stop the spread of this, right? So it's not necessarily like staying home to keep me safe, but it's to keep everybody safe and, like, looking at the community. So even looking, when you talk about mindset and language, like, you're not stuck at home, you're safe at home, like these kinds of, just switching that mindset. And, I'm doing this for the community. It's hard. I want to go see my friends. I miss, doing this and that. But really it's like for that greater good, right? And then if, let's say that I passed it on to somebody else and that person got really sick and maybe even passed away, how would I live with myself knowing that, like, all I had to do was stay home? And I know some people can't do that. Some people are working and don't have that privilege. I understand that I'm pretty good in the situation as it is. But it's just sort of where I put my mindset into it.
Yeah. And I think that's a good way to frame it, because like, especially now, people are starting to sort of either settle into this or they're starting to experience fatigue from it, right? Like, how long is this really going to go on? What do you mean my summer's going to be canceled? And there's one part of this that's kind of like a sad irony is, and I think in a couple podcasts back, Jay, you referred to the Blitz, like the way that was a real thing that people had to endure, and it's sort of a lot of times this whole effort gets likened to a war.
Yeah.
And one of the things, like, I've read a real good book called Tribe by Sebastian Junger, and
I was just gonna reference that because he went on to the Oprah Super Soul Sunday and talked about that book. And he references about, like, how people
really had a good collective like they look back during that time with like fond memories that everybody was helping each other out, and there was a lot of community
British
building
bulldog
there.
spirit.
That's right. But the one thing that, like, we're sort of going through those same efforts right now, the same kind of collective, everybody's got to come together and do the same thing. But the one thing we're not getting to do is to be physically close together.
Yeah.
We're not all helping each other dig ourselves, dig people out of the rubble, or we're
unfortunately,
unfortunately, no, but fortunately or unfortunately, but unfortunately, we might, if we don't take the time to sort of grasp at ways to continue to connect and realize that we're all in this together, that we might miss out on that part of it. The part where we really feel like we're all doing something to help each other out. And it really is counterintuitive to be sitting at home and to feel like you're saving lives, but that's what you're doing.
But you're also seeing, like, you're seeing people jumping up and, sewing masks. You have people like those birthday parades that are going on where people get in their cars and they pass by somebody's house, and like, I look at some of those and it hits me in the feelings. I'm like, oh my God, that's so touching. And the parade that was at TDH as well with the, that was just the other day with the cop cars, like really awesome movements. And I was talking to my friend who lives in Vancouver, and this was last Saturday. We were talking on the phone and she was, okay, 1 second, I just got to go on my porch. And she puts the phone down and then she starts yelling and clapping, and she comes back, did you hear that? I said, well, I could hear you. What are you doing? It says every night at 7 p.m., everybody gets out on their porch, on their front yards, and just yells and claps for the essential service staff that are on the front lines. And like, that's like, hearing things like this are just very moving, how people are stepping up, right? I'm finding stuff like doing trades with friends and stuff where I'm like, okay, I couldn't find soy sauce at the grocery store. I really want to make this recipe. Like, do you have some? Yeah, I have some. Hey, do you have this? Because I don't have this. So we're doing like mailbox drops. I'm trading, curry paste for cookies, and like just doing these kind of, random things. And I'm like, this is just our lives now. This is what we do.
No, but it's kind of cool. It's kind of cool, right? To be doing that. And
yeah.
And I think if we can come out of this and still retain some aspect of that. And if anybody's sort of getting that feeling of like, shit, I'm so sick and tired of being in my house. I don't want to lose my camping this summer. I don't want to lose my fish. Well, I don't think anybody's going to have their fishing, fishing season apparently is going to start when it's supposed to start. Yeah. But I don't want to lose my concerts. I still want to be able to do this, do that. Like, change your perspective for a second. Like, look out and look where you could be of service to help somebody else who might need a hand, and that will carry you through this shit for fucking months.
And like, this is where mindset shifts in. And if you go back to that tribe with Sebastian, I forget his last name, but if you go back to that, in crisis situations, what brought people together is the fact that you had to step up and help your neighbor. And that as social beings, we feel good when we're helping other people, right? Yep. But just also switching your mindset to stop looking at the things that you can't do right now and the things that are canceled. Like, I had my 4 months, I have these big desk calendars that I put up in my office and my wall where I plan all my events. And one day I was just like, okay, no, rip them all off. I'm like, this is not my life anymore. Like, something new is going to happen, right? So just switching that mindset is like, stop looking at the things that you can't do. I had my birthday in March, at the end of March, and I ordered cupcakes from Rachel's Cupcake Shop, and I went and got little party hats, whatever, napkins, and I went and dropped them off at these different households. And then, meet us online at 7 a.m. I kind of like decorated my little back. I had a little backdrop decorated, and everybody had candles. So it was like, hey, everybody light the candle now, so just finding innovative ways to connect and celebrate. It was still a really hard birthday because I usually celebrate for the week and have little gatherings with different sets of friends and family, but just, looking at the things that you can do, and how you can connect, like those watch parties, watching, the music, connecting on Zoom, playing the games, right? So it's not the same, but it's still something that you can do. And like,
well, it helps you. It helps to know that you're doing it for a reason, though. That's the thing,
Yeah.
because it is still a sacrifice. And as much as, you know, in the initial stages of this, we wanted to sort of, I think there was a bit of a push to minimize this, like the idea that you would sit around and not do anything for a couple weeks. Well, a couple weeks turned into a month, and a month might turn into many months. And now it suddenly doesn't feel like it's such a small sacrifice, right? So it feels like you know, especially when people, and now some people are losing their jobs, and it's really taking a real impact on people's lives. So it really helps to remind yourself that this actually is doing something, and you're doing it for a specific reason. It's not, you know, it's not an overreaction. It's not, and this is what's kind of difficult about hearing the commentary that goes against this. It's people in the age of disinformation, you can get all sorts of stories out there that tell you a reason why you sitting at home is not doing anything. If anything, it's contributing to the, you know, march of totalitarianism and whatever verbiage you want to use, whatever verbiage of the day they want to use. But it helps to be reminded of these things that, like, when you look at and I think Charlie had a good post. Charlie Angus, he had a good post about
that bum.
Yeah, that bum. Friend of the show.
Was he playing music again, or
digital hootenanny's great
guy, eh?
Yeah, no, but he put out a good post, and I don't know if it was a share or if it was his own post, but basically saying how, when you look out at the empty streets in your city, or you look at these pictures of like real large centers with empty streets, and people look at them, they go, "Oh my God, this is so creepy. It's like the apocalypse." And it's like, really, if you look at it, this is a demonstration of the biggest act of cooperation amongst people in probably any of our lifetimes, right? Like, everybody is staying home because they understand that it's probably not them that's going to get sick. They're probably going to get somebody else sick, right? Yeah. So everybody is staying home in order to help their neighbor not get sick and die. So to me, that's inspiring.
What's really interesting too is that it's happening globally. Like, I'm talking to people in, you know, different corners of the world that I'm like, okay, how are you guys doing in the Caribbean? Yeah, we're isolated. This is what's happening. We're at home. Like, everybody's going through this, which is actually quite fascinating. And it's really going to it's going to change things in a big way. Who knows where that's going to go? But it's definitely going to change things. I'm worried that the borders are going to open up. I'm a traveler. I like to leave the country at least twice a year. So I'm just like,
you travel virtually. Sure. True. Well, I did make some Thai curry the other night, so I guess I can, you know, eat my way. I'm just hoping, honestly, I'm hoping that there's a lot more people that start podcasts, because I feel like I need more local podcasts to listen to. That's the one thing that's been. I honestly thought when we started this one that there was going to be like, oh yeah, people are going to like super be into this, and they're just going to be really like, hey man, I'm going to start my own podcast. But maybe now
you guys just need to step up your game and do more podcasts.
I guess so. Well, we have been doing a lot more.
Since we've been at home.
Let's just put it this way. This podcast is known less for producing episodes than it is for taking hiatuses. I don't know what's the is the plural of hiatus hiati? I don't know. Like what? But we've taken a few. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. But we like, now that we're home, and it seems that we have more time to do that.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
And they're a little.
I think it's funny because people have reached out to me asking me what I use for podcasts, you know, what programs, what this, what that, people seem to be more interested. And it's funny now that I am getting a fair amount of people saying they went back to re-listen to some old ones, and you know, going on. So it's interesting how I think people are actually kind of jumping on it a bit more. And I know, like Paula, I suppose she keeps. She's a big Freakonomics podcast, and that's all she listens to nonstop. So
I like that one. Yeah.
And she still is. She just called Corey a wuss, saying that he still didn't take her up on doing a financial podcast.
Oh,
yet.
personal finance podcast.
Personal
All right,
finance.
well,
Yeah.
I'll tell her. Let me clear my schedule first. There. I'm gonna take a vacation from beer and bullshit, and then we'll figure it out.
Months.
Oh, it's months.
I think a
vacation.
personal finance kind of podcast would work well in terms of, how to manage things in these times. I've noticed my food budget is like doubled.
My beer budget, dear Lord.
Oh, I've been drinking
there's
so much
that
more.
too.
See, I'm glad that you brought that partake up because I was training for a marathon this summer and I was like not drinking for a little while, and I kept seeing this thing and I was like, am I really gonna like resort to drinking non-alcoholic beer during this time, or am I just gonna be like, I didn't drink for a month or whatever?
Yeah.
But is it good? Like it actually like tastes like beer?
You haven't tried it.
I have not tried it.
Okay. I like the partake because it tastes like craft beer. And I was a huge beer drinker, huge craft beer drinker for the last like 10 years. So I really, I like this one. And then I don't know, it just feels like you're drinking a beer, but you don't have, the hangover the next day.
Is that key, right? No, this is the only reason we drink, right? Is for the next day to be hell.
Well, it's funny because people look at me and they're like, "Ooh, gross! Like you're drinking non-alcoholic beer. What's the point?" And I'm like, "Well, I like the taste of beer, So
I was seeing a lot of guys this year at men's league drinking, whatever the Bud Light and the Coors non-alcoholic beers.
The Prohibition brew, eh?
Yeah, the Prohibition brews and all. They're like, no, they're like, I like this one, that one tastes bad, and they just enjoy having beer after the game with everyone else. And
yeah, Heineken makes one too. So like the non-alcoholic beer market has grown quite a bit. So I'm doing a 365-day alcohol-free challenge. So I'm 7.5 months in now. So
wow. Good for you. That's impressive.
Shit is real.
I once didn't drink for a month. Actually, I think it was a 30-day month. That's for sure. But
was it February of 2018?
No, God, I wish.
Was it the marathon?
No.
Was it
no, it was actually I think it was before I ran my first half. I did that, but I also did sober October there with
I did.
So that was a different one.
Because I know, because when it came to the marathon, we had beer immediately after.
That's right.
It was right there.
After
actually,
running.
I think we went to go try. We didn't go to the brewer or to the brewery in Hamilton. We went to the burger place and the little cocktail bar before that.
That's right. Yeah. Went to
there's a half marathon in the Okanagan in BC where it's called Half Court. So you actually run the half marathon visiting different wineries on the way. I haven't done it. I don't know how it works, but that might be one to check out.
This sounds oddly derivative of Jay and I's beer runs. We before all this, when we were allowed to hang out, we would do beer runs from just going. It'd be like once a week. We would ended up being like a 12-13K run where we would run from down. I think it was Lonergan Park. We would run to like Shirley and run to Compass. Stop, have a beer there. Run to Full Beard, have a beer there, and run home.
I saw you guys, I think, at Full Beard once when you guys were on a run.
It's very possible, yeah. We have been known to frequent that place. So.
And we were talking about this before, but it might be out of the window now, but we want to do the beer mile. I still want to do it.
This summer.
I
think Doug Ford will let us do that.
We'll see. We'll have to do it under the radar. So a beer mile is 4 laps of a proper track. But before every lap, you have to down an entire beer.
Oof.
Like chug it.
Yeah.
Chug it. So the record is held by a runner who was at the University of Windsor. Let's say 8 years ago. He did it in 4 minutes and 30 seconds. I can't run a 4 minute 30 second mile without drinking beer. So this guy was kind of intense, but we want to do one here. And
Jay, you or I could not bike a 4 minute and 30-second mile like that.
Yeah, so 4
That's
laps.
so
That's
fast.
Yeah,
So
if you
fast.
watch that video, like I know I made you watch it, Corey, but like you watch it, and this guy is just he's like 7 feet tall almost, but he's a sprinter.
Yeah.
So he has like everything going for him. But the guy just runs and like chugs a beer like a champ and keeps running. But there's a pace rabbit running who does not drink, and he like almost laps this guy. Like he's going so
Wow.
fast. It's like, yeah, I would love to do it, and like every person, like have like 5 or 6 people, and have every person, kind of or promote one of the breweries in like Northern Ontario. type
Whoever
thing.
wins.
That would be really cool. Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
I think it'd be a fun one. That's one
I'd
thing
go,
I've
I'd go
noticed.
cheer you on. I would not participate.
That's one thing I've noticed with this whole situation. A lot of races got canceled, right? Like a lot of, well, I guess it's large get-togethers, right? Like some of these. I was signed up to do the half marathon in Ottawa, which I guess is a really big one. It would have been my first year doing it, and like 20,000 people in one place is just not going to happen.
Yeah.
So they've canceled it. But now, again, kind of going back to this idea of pivoting, right? A lot of these races are holding them virtually.
Yeah.
So it's like go run your own and send in your time and show your which. Like it's missing something from it because it's not, you don't have that social aspect that comes with those types of things and motivates
just
you.
the rush and the high of being in that like huge crowd of people, right? This is, the human connection.
Or needing to take that poop just before the run.
You're gonna take it right at your house though. No lines.
Yeah, I know, but
no lines.
Just not the same. It's not the same. Because every time you're and that lineup at all those outhouses at the beginning of a race is always intense. There's so many.
There's never enough of those things. But for me, I definitely thought that one of the things that was really appealing to me when I got into this running was the getting together with everybody who's run after the race. Like sort of hanging out in the park and everybody kind of chatting and everybody's on a high, right? Like your endorphins, is that the word I'm looking for? Or
Yeah, you had that one in Hamilton.
yeah, that's right. yeah. The something came up. I don't know if it was.
Was it endorphins?
It wasn't endorphins. No, that's for sure. I don't know if endorphins are supposed to make you shiver and shake for an hour and a half in your hotel bed. But yeah,
it was rough.
It was a horrible experience. I would say, don't run a marathon.
And yet you still sign up for more.
I'm gonna do another one. Yeah, but I thought one of the parts that was really appealing is the fact that you get to hang out with a lot of people. We would do like weekly park runs at Gillies Lake here in Timmins. They have a weekly 5K, and that's been canceled. I hope like that was such a great event, and I hope that in some way it can be reinstated either through like staggered starts and people being able to keep their distance while being outside, whatever it is, because I think a big part of that wasn't just going out there and running. It was like before and after the run, seeing everybody and people come back. People come for their first week, and then they come back their second week and they've got a little bit faster time and so on. And this is the type of thing that, seems to be reinforced when you have a little bit of a social aspect to it. And I don't know how you simulate that online. Do you have, a Skype call after and everybody sit around and talk about
We would stick around and cheer everyone on when they
Exactly, yeah.
You could do something like that. You could do something like that, like have a support system. Like talking about those kind of self-runs, Discover Fitness just launched one today. They have kind of a learn to run program. Cool. So you connect with people learning to run, and then there's a race, I think it's in June or something like that, where you run on your own, but you do the timing. You get, I don't know, there's other businesses involved, like sponsors and stuff like that. So it's more of like trying to get that community feel, right? And feel like you're part of something, which is what people are missing right now. Like It's tough. And even with like the Rebel Soul Tribe events, like a lot of stuff we do is kind of arts and crafts, and it's not really about what you're making. It's about the experience and, you know, coming together and meeting new people and that kind of thing, right? It's never really about just the running. It's like the community that you're part of, which is what makes this so hard, right? On there, like mentally, in terms of just not being able to.
And I'm sure that one of the things that people would describe it as is like, it's nice to get out of the house. You know?
Yeah.
I feel like that's a thing that people well, I don't know. It's probably an expression that that's going to be overused once this is all done. But, yes, like it's something that you would hear all the time, right? Like people have, and Jay, I'm sure as a new parent, you would know that it's just nice sometimes to get out of the house. He's like, oh shit, I have a kid. Oh no.
Forgot about him.
Crap.
No, I know, yeah. Like I haven't been out, like my running has gone to crap for the last how many months. I know I put weight back on, and it's like, I just need to get back to it.
What's really, really hard for us up north too is that like we tend to isolate and hibernate in the winter. So we've already kind of gone through our isolation phase where, you know, we had like seasonal affective disorder. I was ready to, you know, get out of the house more, start interacting more, and then this hit. So we've been, you know, isolating for winter, and now we're like really isolating now. So it's kind of like a double hitter for us up north, which is, you know,
I know. And
makes it even worse.
I've just been coming across articles like that on my newsfeed now about how that's how people are seeing it, right? It's like, oh, in Canada, across Canada, never mind Northern Ontario, even worse, right? Like we're still dealing with the last of our snow. But people in Canada, they look forward to summer. We look forward to the few months that we have where we get to go to the lake, get to go to the beach, get to do all these things, get together with friends for backyard barbecues, whatever it is. Like, this is going to be tough. This is going to be a tough summer. I mean, again, we don't know what the recommendations are going to be. But those of us who choose to follow them appropriately, let's say this persists for the next few months, it's going to be a tough thing, and it's going to be important for people to understand that what they're doing is important. Like it's not like we're not being asked to stay home for no fucking reason, you know. Like it's we really are making a difference in doing that, and if you can feel that you are making that difference, and this kind of goes back to this whole like shared collective hardship thing, it's going to make it a lot more bearable to stay home and to sacrifice your time. So I don't know how people are going to deal with that. I don't know if we'll see more protests. Maybe we'll see yellow vests at City Hall again.
It's interesting too, like going back to that tribe kind of mindset and what they talk about in terms of like modern society, and we tend to live in isolation now, and like, you know, even before this, you didn't really have to leave the house to go shopping. You didn't really have to leave. So, and we're stuck on our, you know, electronic kind of devices, and that was already affecting, you see higher rates of anxiety, depression, social anxiety as well, where you're like, people get anxious about going out in a group setting. So that was affecting us already, right? Now this is just amplifying it, and kind of, we need that human connection. You know, so I think it's really, really hard, and people need to kind of look for those little tidbits of joy, like kind of, you know, shifting your mindset and really doing things that you can find joy in. And like Jay, you can still go for runs, but I think
it's sort of exposed how we got soft. Like we got used to just having things in plenty and being able to go, like, one of the things that I think is really interesting is being able to get groceries anytime. Basically, you need some, like, this idea of convenience became less of a luxury and more of something we felt we were entitled to. And I think you're seeing a lot of people crack under the pressure now of like not having every convenience available to them, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, well, how are we supposed to live this way? It's like, I don't know. You know, you can either sit here and like bitch and moan about it,
Yeah.
or you can adapt. It's like you can, and it's okay. You can be scared. You can be anxious. It can cause you stress. All those things are going to happen. But the one thing that you just can't do is be weak. Like
Yeah.
you
Well,
have to
yeah.
like you can't be like it's important to when it's tough like this, you got to have a strong resolve. You got to be able to go back to why you're doing this and why it's important to continue doing this. So that's my any given Sunday speech.
And sort of looking at like, okay, like, yes, this is really hard and that's okay. Like, yeah, this sucks. This is really hard. We're going to get through this. It's going to pass. It's not, this shittiness is not going to last forever. And I think really like living overseas in developing countries, like I've lived in some of the poorest places in the world where, I first moved there. I didn't necessarily have friends. So I spent a lot of time alone. Then I had to, everything that I wanted, all, the stuff that were available here weren't necessarily available there. So kind of got used to like, okay, I just need to, I don't have those things now. That's fine. So kind of like, I'm looking at like adaptability and like how I'm kind of adapting to this in similar ways that I had to adapt in other like cultural settings, norms, those kinds of things. But in those situations, I was still able to go shopping and go to the market and do those things where you still had interaction. Like I remember living in the Caribbean, and my favorite thing to do was on a Friday was to go down to the market, and people were so friendly there that I would just see a stranger, we'd start talking, and then an hour would go by, right? We were like, okay, I'll see you later, So like still having those interactions, but having to adapt to different surroundings. I think that's what's kind of helped.
It's counterintuitive. It's counterintuitive, right?
See, the Boissonneaus, we were renowned quitters. So during the Blitz, they surrendered day one, or they were willing to surrender day one, and also during the Afghan war, we were surrendering to the Taliban ahead of time, even though we were here. We just figured, play it safe, just surrender now. So yeah,
it's like Kent Brockman's news where he says, "We welcome our alien, our ant overlords." Hey, listen, guys, we've been going for almost an hour and a half now, if you can believe it. Was I right when I said it was just going to fly by?
Yeah, it did just fly by. I was kind of nervous coming on here. I'm like, I can't talk that much. I don't know what I'm going to say.
You're probably talking to like 12 people. This is what we joke about. We have dozen of people, not dozens. We have dozen of people listening to this podcast.
Does I still sound okay? I unplugged my mic on accident.
No. I still hear you.
Okay.
We still hear you good.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah. All right. So, Sylvie, we're gonna wrap this up, but before we let you go, tell us where people can find you. Tell us about your business and where, in these weird times, where people can sort of find out what you're doing, what events that they can attend online, and once this gets going again, what you've got planned for in-person gatherings once we're able to do things together again.
Yeah, okay. So the main place you can find me is on Facebook through the Rebel Soul Tribe page. I am also on Instagram. And then I have a newsletter, like an e-newsletter as well. If folks want to sign up to that, they can email me, rebelsoultribe@gmail.com. And then you get the events, all of the information straight into your inbox. That's probably the best way. And then I haven't really... Like I said, I'm kind of taking things day by day, right? So I haven't made a big picture plan. There's stuff that's going to be happening in May. That'll be posted in the next week or so on the Rebel Soul Tribe page. So we will be doing more of the creative socials, as I like to call it, arts and crafts kind of thing. I'm also going to be launching some yoga workshops in series. So kind of looking at, the mind, body, soul connection to kind of get you through these hard times, and going into the business is kind of focusing a lot on the creative socials. but now we're moving into kind of empowerment stuff, self-development kind of stuff. So launching a healthy eating kind of mindset online workshop that's coming up in May. As soon as we open up, I will be taking out my paddle boards and getting on the water. And the way that business works is that I have inflatable boards. So basically it's a mobile business, right? So a lot of the stand-up paddleboard yoga classes I offer, we usually meet at Hershey, but I've also met people at their cottages, at their houses if they have a body of water, really anywhere. We also do some sub socials. So those are kind of free events where we meet up. If you have a paddleboard, if you don't, I can rent one. Kayak, canoe, and we just go for like an hour-long paddle, and then we often meet at the brewery, have a beer afterwards, that kind of stuff. And then we'll see. I was sort of wanting to plan a conference for the fall, but that might, like a women's conference, but that might get pushed over to next fall. So yeah.
So we will see you there.
Yeah. Like a lot of my
two exceptions for men.
A lot of stuff that I do, you will see a lot of women at. There is some stuff where men do attend. It's a lot of their partners dragging them to these events and having kind of like, I've seen couples come as their like fun date night out to, do a painting. We've done terrarium building workshops, lamp making workshops. So it's really trying to find different things to do and excuses to kind of leave the house. And it's fun because you get to like leave with something afterwards, right? I heard somebody explain it as like, oh, I just tell my husband it's like I'm going fishing. I go somewhere, we chat, and then I take something home. So, that kind of
makes sense.
Idea behind it. So, and I'm always trying to keep things fresh. So always partnering with different local businesses. Most of my venues, like a lot of events happen at Full Beer Brewing or Arlene's Tea Shop. I was hoping to kind of expand that and hit different venues to kind of feature different places in town. So hoping to do that when we reopen. But yeah, that's basically, that's the gist of it, I guess.
Awesome. Well, we're really happy to have you on the podcast, and we really appreciate you coming on, taking the time to speak with us, and giving your take on things. And as we do every episode, Jason, do you have any words of wisdom to sign us off on?
See, I don't know if I've said this one before, because the second I saw it, I was like, I have to say this one.
Somebody will bust us for it.
That's all right. It was by Tina Fey. In a study, scientists have reported that drinking beer can be good for your liver. I'm sorry. Did I say scientists? I meant Irish people.
Sounds about right. All right, we'll see you guys next week. Cheers.
Okay.
We'll be drinking when you get here. We'll be drinking when you get here. We'll be wasting when you get here.